Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our third installment in healthcare supervising. We're delighted that you're back with us today. And just to kind of recap what we've talked about in the other two sessions. In the first session, we had Kimmy Yucks, and Kimmy talked about developing that supervisor mindset. We had Andrew Buffenberger from Kirby Hospital talked really about those crucial conversations and how to make HR your friend and when to bring them in and when maybe to handle the situation on your own. And then last week we jumped into personalities, working with people with different personalities than yours, and then ended with emotional intelligence. So today we're going to wrap up the series and talk about communication and feedback. And we all know that communication is the key to any successful team and any successful relationship, really, is being a good communicator. So we're delighted that you're back with us today as we go through this third session. I will remind you, just like the first two sessions, we will be giving out an Amazon gift card or two at the end of this for people who participate by using the chat feature. So make sure that you chat in any comments or questions to Kathy or myself, and we will put you in the drawing for the Amazon gift card. So with that, I'm going to jump into the disclosure statement. We always have to do just a little bit of housekeeping when we do a program and offer our nursing credit. We will be providing 1 hour of nursing credit for this program, and we are approved by the Ohio Nurses Association. You need to complete the evaluation, which will either pop up at the end of this if you're watching it individually and you have the time to complete the evaluation then, or I will be emailing the link out to you after the program's over with the recording, and you can complete the evaluation at that time. Certificates will be emailed back to you. Hopefully I will get those to you in the next week so that you'll have those before the end of the year and before Christmas. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our final speaker in this series. And I know that you're going to be delighted to hear from Kathy. Kathy is the director of the Professional Education Division here at ICANN. And oh gosh, Kathy and I have worked together a long time doing education. And Kathy really has a passion for rural health and really these issues that we are looking at. And she's shared this whole communications talk several times, from nurse preceptors to all different groups. So we're delighted to have Kathy with us, and welcome, Kathy.
Oh, thank you so much, Liz. I really appreciate that. And want to welcome all of you here today. I know some of you are watching by recording, some of you are here with us live today, and want to welcome you back after the past 3 weeks that we've been together. As Liz said, we've talked about a lot over the past few weeks. We've looked at what it means to be a supervisor. We've talked about working with human resources, and we've looked at everybody's unique personality style, and then really started to dig into that emotional intelligence side. And I think really as we kind of drill down and think about these last 3 weeks, it's really getting across the idea that supervisor development is fundamentally self-development. Every day is looking inside yourself and asking what you can do better and what you can do differently. Some of us have been in the field longer than others, but no matter where you're at in your career, I think there's always something new to learn about ourselves and about the people we lead. I read something the other day that said leadership is in the moment. And I love that line because it's really saying that leadership doesn't happen in the past. What you've done in the past doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't happen in the future. It happens today. Each day we can make a difference and we can be better leaders. As a supervisor, you're ultimately responsible for seeing that your staff delivers the level of service required by your hospital. And it's your skills, the skills that you develop, the quality of work that you produce, the environment that you create that really makes a difference for you in your hospital. So as I was thinking about this, I just kind of pulled together what I thought of as the heart of supervision. And I listed them out as understanding, setting goals, and cultivating accountability. So as I thought about understanding, it's really the ability to understand the staff that you're supervising, for them to understand you and to understand your expectations, for you in turn to understand the expectations that upper management and your board of directors set out for you, and for you to be able to communicate those priorities back to your staff. It involves you listening, communicating, and developing relationships. And of course, supervising is all about setting goals and helping prioritize job responsibilities, fostering teamwork, and connecting that work to the mission of your hospital. And I think that connection to the mission is so important. No matter where you're at in the hospital, no matter what your employees, what your team members are doing, they need to be able to relate back to the mission of the hospital and know what they're doing is important for the patients, for the community, and for the hospital as a whole. So looking for those ways to relate things back to the mission is really a key job of a supervisor. It shows that you're walking the walk, you're talking the talk. And I think it's important for you to also be able to set your own goals. I know your upper management sets goals for you, but setting your own personal goals. And then as a good supervisor, you want to cultivate accountability. You want to be able to paint a picture of what success looks like for you, for your team, and you want to be able to clarify those responsibilities and expectations that you're creating. You want to look for those coachable moments. You want to be able to give good feedback, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And you'll want to be able to reward the good works that people do. And I know Kimmy did a fantastic job of talking about rewarding people, but those thank yous go a long way. So always remember, that accountability starts with good leadership, and you're the leader of your team. So as a supervisor, you're a role model. What you do matters, what you demonstrate matters, and how you say it matters. You really are a role model, and that's sometimes kind of hard to get your head around. I mean, I always thought as role models as, people, up on pedestals, but every day, your staff, your colleagues are watching what you do and how you do it every day. So your work habits should be the ones that you expect of the people you supervise. Do some simple things like coming to work promptly and treating employees with respect. Address issues in a timely manner. Dress like a supervisor. It sets a sense of professionalism. And I think we've all seen departments where maybe the leader is not looking as professional as maybe they could. And it sets a tone about that department and about that person. So dress for success. Come to work. Establish a pattern that allows you to be most productive while you're at work. Try to have those times when you can have some alone time where you can concentrate and not be interrupted by telephone, emails, staff problems. Time management really is critical to your success as a supervisor. And then always maintain those appropriate boundaries. We've talked about this several times over the last couple of weeks, but you really can't be best friends with the people that you're supervising. You can't be besties on Facebook and other sites. So establish those relationships that are positive, but establish those boundaries that go along with it. Again, you want to role model the behaviors that you want to see in your team. So at the heart of all of this and everything we've talked about over these past 3 weeks is communication. And I want to stop here for just a moment and give you a chance to chat in and get your name in for that Amazon gift card that we're going to be giving away here right before Christmas. So you can't beat that. But chat in and let me know, what makes someone a good communicator? I mean, we see this in our hospitals, people who are really good communicators and people who are poor communicators. What do you see that sets people off as a good communicator? Go ahead and chat that in.
Hey, Kathy.
Yeah.
We've had some responses, and I also wanted to tell you too, there's some kind of gray box that is showing up that people are commenting on, that it's hard to see all of your slides. I don't know if it's if you can. Oh, now it's moving. The gray box is getting bigger.
The gray box is getting bigger. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. But a lot of people are saying they want to be a good listener, follow up, listening keeps coming up a lot. Un, understand, not just listen, transparent, follow up, the ability to listen first,
Mhm.
all of those things. Be attentive.
Oh, those are excellent. Those are great. And I don't know what's going on with the gray box, so I apologize for that. Maybe Liz, I don't know if you can look at that on your side, maybe, or if you even want to come in here and kind of look on this. We're running a dual monitor here, which is a little
Sure.
bit different because I've got some computer problems. So I can't see that it looks like full screen to me. So I'll just kind of keep moving on. I don't know if it gets worse, let me know, and I'll see if I can kind of play around with it at the same time I'm doing this. So yeah, so those were great responses. Those are exactly the kind of things that I see when we talk about good communicators. It's always being positive. It's checking for understanding. It's not drawing conclusions. People who don't interrupt, and then people who are respectful of what everyone has to say. And are you making any progress
No,
here?
I didn't know about the display settings there, but we can just keep going on. Yeah. Let's just keep moving.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, there's always some kind of tech issues. So I appreciate you letting us know. So sorry about that. But yeah, as we kind of look again at, communicating and what makes everybody a good communicator, delegating, coaching, crucial conversations, personality differences, emotional intelligence, all depends on how well we're communicating and if we are a good communicator or not. And as I was researching this and looking at every study, over and over again, it tells us that communication is the most important skill to have as a supervisor. And yet 34% of employees say they are dissatisfied or extremely dissatisfied with communication in the workplace. So it really is worth your effort to look at this, to look at ways to improve your communication, because ultimately it improves relationships, it reduces frustration, and in a clinical setting, it's going to improve the quality and safety of care that we offer to our patients. Communication is also the best tool we have for welcoming people to our workplace, to integrate new hires into our way of doing things, to solve problems, to provide great patient care, to improve patient satisfaction and workplace satisfaction. It can also be our worst enemy. Gossiping, backstabbing, failure to listen are things that I've seen over my career in every workplace I've been in. So today, again, we're going to take a look at those high impact communication skills and think about how you as a leader sets that example in how you communicate with your staff and with your team. So as we always think about communication, we do it every day. We talk all the time to everyone we work with. We send emails, we send texts, we're in group messages. And so we always think, hey, I know what communication is. It's two or more people and they're relaying information back and forth. So we're kind of in that red and yellow bubble. And we forget sometimes that communication is really about this big green bubble. It's really about the message being understood by the receiver. But that's the part, unfortunately, that tends to break down, right? And I know that's what gets frustrating for all of us in leadership positions. I believe all of us do and try to be really great communicators. We think we're getting that message across, but people don't always hear that message. They don't often interpret the message the way you intended. And my husband came home from work the other day and he was frustrated. He's in healthcare too. And he was talking about the COVID vaccine and the fact that, they were hoping to be able to offer it at their office if it became available. And he wanted to make it as easy as possible for staff to be able to access the vaccine. And so he was excited about it. He's like, this is great. The vaccine's here. Left the meeting. By the end of the day, it got back to him that people were just up in arms because they thought that he was mandating the vaccine. A lot of them didn't want the vaccine. They were upset about this. They weren't going to work at a place where this was mandated and on and on and on. And so he's like, never, ever did I say mandate. But that was the message people heard. That was the message people understood. And some people took that message and it spread like wildfire. And so those messages can be really hard at the group level, and I get that, and they can be sabotaged by people within the group. So we'll talk a little bit about some skills and some ideas of how to overcome that. And I think I put this slide up just because I think it's kind of interesting, the communication math. So we're talking at a speed of about 150 words per minute, but we're just thinking so much faster, through 400 to 500 words per minute. So we're really only grasping about 30 to 40% of what we hear. And all of this other stuff is going on in our brains. We're jumping to conclusions, we're daydreaming, we're planning replies, we're mentally arguing with the speaker. So you can see how this communication starts to break down. People, again, start to jump to conclusions. So 3 things that you can do to lessen the impact of communication math. Number 1, communicate frequently and be specific. Number 2, segment and target the information. Find the right audience, know who your target audience is to get that information out to. And then focus on what's important to know versus what's nice to know. We can really overload people with a lot of information. So focus on those key concepts. And then just kind of as a bonus tip, I think it's important to let your staff know that they're also responsible for understanding the messages correctly. We can spend a lot of time in telling and telling and telling, but at a certain point, that responsibility has to lie back on the team as well, that they need to ask questions for what they don't understand. So why does it matter? Why does it matter that, again, 34% say workplace communication is extremely poor? 91%, that's a crazy number, 91% of employees think that their managers are bad communicators. More than 71% believe their leaders do not spend enough time communicating goals and plans. And the thing is, it has some real consequences. It leads to distrust within your team, less satisfaction for you and your coworkers. Poor communication affects the quality of work and engagement. And we always say, people don't leave jobs, people leave their bosses. And many times it's because of that breakdown in communication. And then in healthcare, this is another just huge number. 70% of sentinel events have been found to be caused by miscommunication. And Vital Smarts, if you're familiar with Vital Smarts and their Silence Kills study, they did a big communication study a few years ago. They found that when it comes to troubling communication, the numbers are just really high. When you look at mistakes, 92% of physicians, 65% of nurses say they work with people that have trouble following direction. 77% of healthcare workers report disrespect. People who are condescending, who are insulting, who are rude. 33% say they work with people who are verbally abusive. Poor teamwork, 88% of nurses have one or more teammates who gossips or is part of a clique that divides them. And 52% still report bullying in the workplace. And that's something I think we've really tried to work on over the years, is to reduce that bullying, eat your young kind of mentality. And yet there's still reports of up to 52% of workers saying that's happening. So your goal is to be a high impact communicator. Make others feel comfortable and respected. Develop relationships. Share your message effectively. Show integrity. Don't just talk. Ask, listen. Relationship building is really key. Be approachable, be personable, be authentic. Years ago, I worked for the public health department. And in that department, it was all about the chain of command. It was supervisors didn't go out and talk on the floor. You only talk to the administrator through the supervisor. There was no relationship building. And as a result, there was absolutely no morale. There was no team camaraderie, and the good people left. So be authentic with your employees, develop trust with your employees. Again, it's not about being their best friends. It's about building strong relationships. And then I can't really focus enough on this idea that your integrity equals your credibility, meaning be truthful, be honest, role model behaviors, walk the walk, talk the talk, Value what employees say. Sit down, actively listen, explore ideas. As a high impact communicator, again, you want to help develop those relationships and show integrity in everything that you do. One of the best things that you can really start today by doing is working to eliminate unproductive conversations on your team, by others that you work with. Be truthful, be consistent, refrain from gossip, no profanity, no backstabbing, no tasteless remarks. Avoid complaints and blaming. You can all be the complaining and blaming department. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and he said, if I could honestly tell my employees one thing, it would be quit complaining about other people and just do your job. So avoid complaining and blaming, and then always tell the truth. Again, your integrity equals your credibility. And honesty is the #1 trait people identify when they're looking for a leader. So be truthful in what you do, recognize unproductive communication, recognize that it stops and stalls or diverts the progress that you're trying to make to create a really positive workplace culture. And I think these are just good things to review with your staff. If you permit them, you promote them. If you're not part of the problem, part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So if these behaviors are going on your team, and sit down, talk to people about that, eliminate those behaviors. So 4 things you can start doing today. Become a high impact communicator by being concise, clear, and confident, using open-ended questions, use a lot of I messages, and then use good active listening skills. These, along with good nonverbal communication, making eye contact, smiling, leaning forward, engaging people, not getting into people's personal space, are all really great building blocks to being an excellent communicator. So Richard Feynman, he was a physicist, and he said, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you can't really explain it. And I think if somebody could have explained physics to me like a 6-year-old, I would have been in a lot better shape than I was in physics class. But his point is to use concise, clear, and confident statements. Again, it's using that plain language. And we've done a lot of work here at Professional Education Services for ICANN on health literacy. And it's all about using terms and terminologies that people know, understand, and can relate to. It's all about separating that need to know from the nice to know. And that's so important in all the communication and interactions we have with your team, with your board of directors, with your direct supervisors. So keep the message tight. Instead of just rambling on and trying to get out all the information, and break it into chunks. One of the things I used to do was work, when I was working at the health department, was work a lot with our media and worked a lot with other team members to help them form their messages for the media. And one thing we always talked about was what we called a SOCO, having a single overriding communication objective. The one thing that you want to take with you to a meeting, the one thing that you want to communicate when you're sitting down with feedback, writing that down and having that in front of you helps you clarify that message and helps, so you're just not kind of rambling on, but you can get the right information out correctly. So be concise, be clear, and be succinct in what you're wanting to say. The next skill you want to use is to use a lot of open-ended questions. So it's kind of a default that we all have to use closed-ended statements. How's everything going today? Did your job go well today? People say yes, no. And you don't get a lot of information that way. So try to use good, provoking questions that promote learning instead of you just offering opinions and advice. It really helps your employee to develop their own critical thinking skills, and it's much more solution-oriented. So the more questions you ask, the better. So things like, what do you think we need to work on? Or what would you do differently next time? Or what would happen if? Again, it's promoting that conversation. And that's all about, again, cultivating that accountability, which goes back to the heart of supervision. So what challenges do you face that I don't see? What strengths would you like to use more at work? What energizes you about your work? Finding out about what the employee thinks, what your team member thinks. And again, that helps cultivate those relationships. And I think key here too is understanding that you don't have to have all the answers. As you're developing these questions and talking through, sometimes it's easy to want to jump in and solve all the problems. And I think new supervisors especially think it's a sign of confidence to know everything. You want to be seen as somebody who's very confident. But as you mature, as you become more confident in your career, recognize that this dialogue is really important. And it's okay if you don't know the answer to say, hey, I don't know. I'm going to go find out for you. The third strategy to use is iMessages. Again, iMessages help you be clear. They help you be concise. They take responsibility for your communication by being straightforward. They help to build trust. They're a way of communicating how you feel without losing control of your own emotions. So these are really good to use in some conflict resolution problems or feedback where you're upset about something. It allows time to resolve conflicts without other people feeling blamed or attacked. It takes a little time to practice and get the hang of, but I just think they really help you take responsibility for your communication. So you can hear the difference. If you put you statements and the you out first, people just get more defensive. So if you say you are late turning in your report, automatically it sets people up and they step back and they start defending themselves. If you turn that around to an I statement, it sounds more like, I'm concerned because your report is late. Tell me what happened. Gets that dialogue going, right? So I think you do have to be careful so you don't turn these into passive aggressive I messages. So you could say, I'm concerned because your report is late. You never get it in on time. That's not an I statement. That's an aggressive statement. The other thing you want to avoid are weak I statements. I could be wrong, but, or I don't know how much you like this idea, but I don't think this is right, is it? Those are weak I statements. Avoid those. Stick with that thought process of I am, I think, I believe, I can. And then avoid demotivating words. Anything that starts with you didn't, you should have, you shouldn't, you never, you obviously. Those are all demotivating defensive words. So this is just kind of a nice graphic of iMessages. I'm kind of a visual learner, so I like the way this lays out. I think it looks as a helpful tool for you. So situation A is just the supervisor and employee. The supervisor, I have a concern. My concern is, here's why. How do you see it? And then pause and listen. It's again about engaging the employee. Situation B, tell me more how you see the situation. Again, pause, listen, give some time for that conversation. So I don't know if we've got any MASH fans out there. Benjamin Pierce, Hawkeye Pierce of MASH fame, was really Alan Alda. And he said this quote I ran across. I just thought it was such a cool quote. The difference between listening and pretending to listen is enormous. Real listening is a willingness to let the other person change you. When I'm willing to let them change me, something happens between us that's more interesting than a pair of dueling monologues. And if you think back to that graphic from the beginning when we talked about communication, a lot of times it just ends up to be those dueling monologues. So move to some good active listening skills. So some things that you can do to improve your listening: face the speaker and make eye contact. Don't look around the room and fidget. Repeat the basic message back. Ask for clarification. That's that teach back method that a lot of you use with your patients. Same thing with your employees. Keep an open mind about what the speaker is saying. Don't make assumptions. Assumptions are the killer of everything. Check for accuracy of your own perceptions. My perception is my reality, might not be what other people perceive. Be quiet. Sometimes this is the hardest skill of any, but let people have some time to think and process as well as talk. Again, you don't have to jump in and solve all those problems. Pay attention, stop other tasks and listen. I think we've all been, especially with so many of us on Zoom and working remotely, it's easy when you're on calls with people to sometimes be checking your email or typing. Same thing when you're on a virtual call, give people your full attention. Don't interrupt, don't shift your attention away to your own problems. We all know people who, we've got a problem, we want to come in to discuss, but they've got a bigger problem. So avoid that, really focus on the person's problem that's coming to talk to you. Don't let your own emotions get in your way. And probably most importantly, put your phone away, put your keyboard away, stop and listen. So this is just a quick listening assessment, 10 questions. Kind of see where you are, and you can just mark down yes, sometimes, or no on your handouts or on a piece of paper, but kind of see where you're at with your listening and where you might want to improve or where you're feeling you're doing a really good job. So question 1, I give the impression that I'm fully listening. Do you do that all the time, sometimes, or not enough? Question 2, I give the speaker plenty of time to talk. How do you do there? I refrain from interrupting the speaker. Is that something you'd like to improve on? I fidget with objects or otherwise act distracted. Number 5, I probe for deeper understanding. Are you using some good questioning to find out more, or are you jumping in and trying to be a problem solver? Number 6, I convey an attitude of openness and sincerity. Number 7, I think this is an interesting one. I insert humorous remarks even when the speaker is serious. Are you trying to lighten the load or lighten the mood when maybe it doesn't need to be? Number 8, I'm willing to be influenced by what I hear. Number 9, I look at the speaker with encouraging eye contact. And number 10, I demonstrate empathy through listening. So this is just kind of a quick 10 question one. There's a lot of really good listening assessments that you can Google, find out if you want to kind of dig into this a little bit more. So some of you may be Stephen Covey fans. Stephen Covey and 7 Habits of Highly Effective Leadership. This is habit number 5 he talks about. And he says we want to seek first to understand and then to be understood. The habit really focuses on the need to practice empathetic listening. Sometimes it's more important to be kind than it is to be right. And Covey talks about listening with his heart. Seek to understand. It requires consideration. It requires courage. So as I was pulling this all together, I found this video that really focuses on empathetic leadership. So we'll see how it goes. Liz, let me know if it's not playing correctly, but we'll give it a shot here.
It's just, there's all this pressure, And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. All of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Come on, if you would just...
Don't...
So I laugh every time I see that. My husband laughed even harder, but he's a fixer and he tries to fix it. And maybe you are too. I think it's important to have solutions as a supervisor, but it's also important to be empathetic. And, sometimes you have to work together to find the solution. One of my favorite people I ever worked for, he always said, come to a solution, fix it, and move on. But you have to listen to find what the solution is. So anyway, just love that video. So mass communication, let me go back here. This is one that I've never had in the slide set before, but with everything going on with COVID-19 and wearing shields and wearing face masks, it really does impact our communication. When we're wearing masks all the time, it hides those micro expressions that we use to convey happiness, sincerity, trustworthiness, our good intentions. I just see this even just out shopping. You don't see people smiling. You don't see people checking out smiling at you anymore. It really makes a difference. So think about that as you're covered up with a mask. And one of the things you can do is practice your mask voice. The quality of your voice makes a big difference in how people respond to you emotionally. And that's true both personally and professionally. So think about, putting in a little more enthusiasm in your voice, talking a little bit bigger and louder than you normally do. Smile under that mask. It's going to light up your eyes. Use some more gestures. Again, if we're 6 feet apart, you can't be kind of subtle with your gestures. Make it a little bit bigger. Make full use of those gestures to convey what you're trying to get across. Again, smile with your eyes. It's one of probably the most important nonverbal skills you can do. And again, when you're on Zoom, use those same type of techniques. And I think Zoom and all of that's just made things so hard. Liz and I worked from home for about 2.5 months, 3 months, and we would jump on calls together, calls with other people. But we really, when we were home together separately, we made a point of every day checking in for a half hour, 15 minutes, just to connect. So if you've got staff that are working at home, really set up some times where you can sit down and talk with them, touch in with them. It's very isolating to be working at home. So I want to talk just a little bit about email and text communication. I'm somebody who gets a lot of emails a day, a couple hundred a day. Some people, I've talked to people who have gotten, 500, 600 emails a day. Some of you in a clinical setting may not be getting quite as many. But there's certainly a way that we all communicate and all communicate professionally. So you want to make it look as good as possible. You want to make it as understandable as possible for the person you're sending the message to. So some simple things, not rocket science, but just open with the person's name and open and close with a positive. Liz and I have a coworker, and this is one of the skills she was really working on this year. She said she was just the kind of person who just nailed out her message, just typed it in and sent it. But people were really perceiving her as somebody who was upset with things other people were doing, kind of off-putting messages. And she's not that kind of person. And she's like, that's not the way I wanted my messages to come across. It's not what I meant. It's just kind of the way I do things. And so she was trying to come up with a style that would open with the person's name, always close with a positive. Think ahead of what you're trying to say and say it in the simplest way. And then proofread everything. Sloppy emails make you look sloppy as a professional. So make sure your grammar is correct. Make sure that your sentences are full sentences. Check and make sure that the email looks neat and professional. This is a text message from my husband. I get these all the time. I never know what he's talking about. And so it's just, again, something that you want to kind of check and proofread. You don't want to have people trying to always decipher your messages and going back and forth and saying, what do you mean? What's that all about? And, you probably all work with those people where you're trying to figure out, what this message is. So make sure you're clear. Answer the questions someone asks you when they email you. One of my pet peeves is if I ask 2 questions, somebody only asks answers one question, you have to go back. So it's just a time management thing. It's a waste of time to have to go back and forth. So read through the entire email, respond to people's emails, even just a simple yes or no, so people know that you've gotten your emails. You don't want to have to be chasing after people. You don't want people chasing after you. I think it goes without saying that you never want to send an email or any text message when you're angry. You're not going to get it back. I like using bullet points or numbers to kind of separate or chunk out my thoughts. If you're going to use boldface or italics or underline, use it sparingly. Don't use it in all your emails. Really try to find those key points that you want to highlight. Keep it short, keep it simple. 3 sentences per paragraph, short, clear sentences. Don't use a lot of passive aggressive CCing of people. Make sure the message goes to who you want it to. You don't need to put your boss on that. Not too many urgents, not too many exclamation points. Keep the smiley faces to people that you know. Use read receipts sparingly as well. Some people use them all the time, and people will find those annoying. So kind of just watch those little things. Again, the idea is just to be clear, just to be effective. So just a couple of examples here. Again, clarity is so important. It's important in all of our communication. So this one is, with the holidays coming up, sometimes people come to look for you and you're not there. When I was at Mercy the other day, I saw they hung up signs. Hung up signs about what? So, clarify that with something like, because many of us are working staggered hours over Christmas, please post your holiday office hours on your door so clients will know when you are available. Clear, straightforward. This is just a long email. It starts off with, the purpose of this email is to share expectations about the holiday party. And then you have to dig all the way through. You don't even know what the expectations are. They're talking about funny words like croissants, talking about somebody getting sick last year. Bullet point that up, shorten it up into some short sentences. Here are our assignments. Tell everybody what their assignments are. And again, poor grammar, just avoid it. It's not professional. And as a supervisor, you want to reflect professionalism in everything that you do. So, use full sentences, don't use slang, make it look, again, very professional. So we'll switch gears here just a little bit. It all ties in, communication is an essential part of feedback, but look a little bit more at feedback skills. And feedback is really critical for evaluating performance of your team. I think it's important to recognize a couple of things about feedback. First of all, people like feedback. People want feedback. And as I've done these feedback talks with our nurse preceptor group over the years, I've run into a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm just not very comfortable doing it. I don't want to upset people. It's hard to do. But recognize people really want to know what they're doing well. They want to know how to do better. So recognize that feedback's a two-way process. You don't have to be the only person. You don't have to be, as a supervisor, just talking. You want to, again, make that a two-way process. Get back to that goal setting. You need to have good, strong goals. It's a fundamental part of being a supervisor. So set those goals with your team members. You're going to use that for your feedback. It's going to strengthen them as performers, and it's going to cultivate accountability. So Liz and I think she mentioned this last week, spent a lot of time on Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead. And Brene spends a good portion of her work and her research on feedback. And, if you get a chance to look at Brene's materials, she's got excellent resources online. I'm going to kind of use a lot of her examples here over the next couple of slides, just because I think it's such a great way to look at feedback. And she just has done a lot of research on the topic. And one of the things she really points out with feedback is what stands in the way becomes the way. And too often what she's found, again, in her research, is that giving honest, productive feedback is what stands in the way. There's too much blame in our organizations and in our hospitals, and there's not enough accountability and learning. And as supervisors, as leaders, we tend to avoid really tough conversations. And that includes giving honest and productive feedback. So again, if you think back to the heart of supervision, understanding, setting goals, cultivating accountability, those all rely on really good feedback, and they rely on honest feedback. But what Brene says over and over in her materials in her book is this idea that clear is kind and unclear is unkind. And when I've, again, worked with Brene's Dare to Lead book, we've talked about this quite a bit. And a lot of people say, and in our organization at ICANN, I would agree that we have more of a cultural norm of being nice, of being polite, and avoiding really tough conversations. Now, I don't know if you agree with that or disagree with that. You can certainly chat in and let us know, or if you see that at your organization as well. But Brene's point is that feeding people half-truths is what's unkind. Talking about people rather than to people is unkind. Having high expectations, but not being clear about those expectations because it's too hard. The idea, again, that we avoid those difficult conversations, and then we as supervisors are frustrated. And that we often start the feedback process too late. We wait until evaluation time, we wait till 6 months down the road, and then we give the feedback or talk to the employee about what's going wrong. So the challenge with feedback is really to be present and to make it an everyday part of your interaction. So just kind of some review of different forms of feedback. First of all, no feedback, and I think we see that way too much, or we see it only at evaluation time, so you want to eliminate that. Praise. Praise is great. Praise makes everyone feel good. We want praise, we need praise. Kimmy talked about that in her presentation, telling people thank you. Positive feedback. Positive feedback's great. It encourages repeat or continuation of the behavior or action that we want to continue to see. Negative feedback, yeah, sometimes we need to talk about negative aspects of what's going on. Constructive feedback's where we want to land. It's what we want to do on a more regular basis. It calls attention to the problem. It opens the door for problem solving and follow-up action, and it really builds on strengths. Constructive criticism, we used to see that constructive criticism is a thing of the past, and that's something like we really, really need to avoid. So bottom line is listen like you're wrong, talk like you're right. In other words, listen to the people that you're having a feedback conversation with. It's more about getting them to tell you the truth than you perceiving or guessing at the truth. If you hear information from somebody else, check out your sources. Find out if those sources are right. And then you can have a conversation that's much more honest. So again, back to Brene Brown's list. She put together this list that she calls the I know I'm ready to give feedback list. And so I want to give you just a second to look over this list. There's some really great feedback challenges here. And as you think about those, and as you look at those, and I'll pull them back up here in just a second, but think about where your feedback strengths are. What are you good at currently? Where are your growth opportunities? And then how can you use high impact communication to give engaged feedback? So I'll pull those back up and just kind of look at that list. And again, chat in what your feedback strengths are and where your opportunities are for growth. I'll give you, again, just kind of a minute to look at those. We all have areas that we're really good at, and we all have areas that we'd like to improve on.
One comment that's come in, Kathy, is owning my part. Very good about admitting my flaws and also state what can be done to fix it.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. Yeah, absolutely. Owning my part is hard. And, for me, I always say, one of the things I want to work on is I can recognize your strengths and how you can use them to address your challenges. So I think we all have those areas that we want to do better on. And this is a great list. Again, Brene has it up on her resource page. pull it up and kind of keep it out in front of you as you challenge yourself to do more in feedback with your team.
We had a couple of more that came in about putting the problem in front of us rather than between us. A couple of people mentioned that.
Yeah, I love that, putting the problem in front of us. Absolutely. Otherwise, it's back to that unclear is unkind.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then sometimes, honestly, the criticism can be directed at you, and that's hard. It's hard for us as supervisors and leaders to hear that. So just a couple of things that you want to do as a leader if somebody comes to you and wants to give you feedback. Understand that you have to listen. That it's important for you to admit your mistakes when you're wrong and say you're sorry. Make amends, find ways to do better. Instead of facing criticism and getting defensive, acknowledging mistakes without excuses or apologies, using clear statements of what happened. Share your plan of how you're going to correct your mistake. So this is just another of Brene Brown's facing feedback. And I think this is just so great when we get in those difficult conversations. We all have those physical signs that make us feel defensive. Our hands get sweaty, they get cold. We can feel our face flushing a little bit. And so sometimes we don't always listen. And so again, when you're in those feedback situations that are tough, sometimes it's just saying to yourself, I'm brave enough to listen, or there's something valuable here, or this is a path to my own mastery. So instead of getting defensive, kind of have those, gut checks of things that you want to say to yourself that'll put you in a frame of mind to listen to that feedback. So conflict resolution, we're going to move through these pretty quickly. There are tips that you can just kind of read off of your slides and have in front of you, but conflict in your organization is not going to go away, but we can minimize the effect of conflict. And there's always people who are going to thrive on conflict. There's always going to be those people who stir the pot, but it's how we react to that conflict that can change the situation. The great remedy for anger is delay. Speak when you're angry and you'll make the best speech you'll ever regret. So absolutely. We all have a primary style for conflict management. A lot of us avoid it, hope it goes away. Some of us accommodate it or confront it. Some of us get very competitive. We're going to, show them. Some people are good at compromising, but the real goal is to be a collaborator, to be a problem solver. So look for those ways to come together for solutions, fix it, and move on. So tip number one, just be aware of when a conflict is occurring. You don't always have to solve the conflict. You don't always have to address the conflict, but pay attention when things don't seem to be going right. Notice if they're going to just kind of simmer or if they're going to boil over. Tip number two, when you're involved in conflict personally, recognize that the only person that you can change is yourself. Understand what your motives are and what your agenda is. Understand what biases you might bring to the situation. Again, open-ended questions, talking through, finding solutions. Tip number three, know your purpose in the conversation. Know what your goals are for engaging in this dialogue. Do you need to be a part of this problem? Is this something somebody else should be fixing and coming to a solution for? Tip number four is make it safe. Loss of safety, that's flight or fight kind of mentality that people have. Safety is about the content. It's not about the conversation. So safety is all about the intent and the motive behind the conversation. So make it safe for the people that are there with you. Coach in private, praise in public. Separate people so you can sit down and have a private conversation. And then tip number five, manage your own emotions. When you're angry, when you're upset, you're not going to be able to resolve a conflict. Understand whose problem it is. Get to the root of the problem. Get to the root of why you're feeling so upset and angry. And take a time out. Don't address problems when emotions are running high. So I want to close here just talking about your supervisor style. And Kyle Dotson, school principal from somewhere, I don't know where, but he had this great quote. And he said, "The journey to becoming a wise and effective leader begins with the work of understanding oneself." So I ran across this story not too long ago, and it's a great story for the year 2020. It actually came out of the 1930s. And this is a picture of the guardian lions at the New York Public Library. And I didn't know they have names. I didn't know that. But back in the 1930s, New York City Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia named the guardian lions in front of the New York City Library for qualities that he thought were very important for New Yorkers to help them survive the Great Depression. And again, so applicable for us today. But Mayor LaGuardia named the lions fortitude and patience. And these names have endured all these years. And I think they're great touchstones for navigating our own life and our own challenges as supervisors and leaders. So as I was thinking about that, I thought it'd be a great challenge, a great idea to kind of think about what you would name your two lions. You know, if somebody gave you two lions, set them outside your door and said, "These are the touchstones of your efforts as a supervisor," what would you name them? What two ideas can really be the touchstones for your supervisor leadership? I think they're important because they help simplify what you're doing. They help clarify your own personal goals and values. So what I'd like you to do here, just in this last minute or two, is think about what you would name your two lions. And then over the next week, think about how those show up in your leadership journey. And then think about how you could overuse those as well. But what would you name your two lions? And it could be anything. You know, you could name your lions collaboration or excellence or honesty.
Trust
Your
and
lion,
honesty is one response that we've gotten.
super.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you name your lions, Liz? I'll put you on the spot here.
Oh, gosh. Well, you know, with my extroverted personality, they might be something very flashy, but but I do like that whole trust and honesty. I think that those are really good qualities to be thinking about as your leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else name their lions?
Confidence, integrity, perseverance. Oh, and we got one that said safe zone would be the name of one of their lions.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I haven't heard that one before. That's awesome.
I like
Yeah.
that. Inspire is one person's name, transparency and trust. You guys are great. You're so creative. You're
I
coming up with some
know.
great ones. But
Yeah, those are excellent. So yeah, I just challenge you over the next week or so to think about, what you would name your lions. And heck, if anybody finds any lions and puts them outside their supervisor door or at your workstation, send us a picture. I'd love to see them. So yeah, just think about what those are. And then finally, think about what matters to you most. Think about what your expectations are as a manager and think about how you communicate those expectations to your staff. Sometimes, we focus on communication from the team level, but we don't always talk about what our expectations are. We talk about our team members' goals, but we don't always share our expectations. So if you have expectations as a supervisor, think about how you're going to communicate those. And those could be, again, simple things like I expect people to be nice to one another. I expect people to be prepared for meetings. I expect people to meet deadlines. Just think about those and share those with your staff so that they know what results they're expected from you. So in the end, as we wrap up these 3 weeks, again, communication matters. It matters in dealing with people of disparate personalities. It matters in conflict resolution. It matters when we talk to our human resources department. It matters in everything. It matters in how you demonstrate it and matters in how you say it. And as we close out, I just wanted to share with you something I found out of, I'll kind of hold it up here for the camera, the Leadership Challenge. It's a fantastic book. It's been around, I think it's in its 6th edition now. And at the end of the book, they talk about the idea of leadership is doing, leading is doing. And a gentleman by the name of Sergey Nekrov, who was the director of sales for Persistent Systems, wrote the following. I found that every day I had an opportunity to make a small difference. I could have coached someone better. I could have listened better. I could have been more positive toward people. I could have said thank you more often. I could have. The list just went on and on. At first, I was a bit overwhelmed with the discovery of how many opportunities I had in a single day to act as a better leader. As I have gotten to put these ideas into practice, I have been pleasantly surprised by how much improvement I have been able to make by being more conscientious and more intentional about acting as a leader. So I hope over the last 3 weeks, we've given you some things to think about, some ways that you can think about supervision and leadership. We certainly welcome your comments, your thoughts, your ideas. And then just want to say Merry Christmas and thank you for being with us today. Liz, I'll turn it back over to you. And again, if you have any final thoughts, please chat them in.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Great information. And I love how it all ties together with everything that we've talked about. And hopefully everyone, in this series has gotten some skills, some things that you're going to try, learn some new things. And as we've said, I think every single week, this is just a tiny portion of what's out there. I encourage you to dig deeper into communication. There's some great books, great videos. I love that video you had, Kathy. I was laughing in here. You could probably hear me. So just really appreciate you all being part of it. And if you have any questions or if you want to reach out to us about suggestions of books to read or resources that are out there, we would love to chat with you. And we'd love to hear on the survey, there's a question about what other kinds of programs would you like to see around leadership. So we would love to develop other programs also. So thanks everyone. We've kind of run over by about a minute. So I think we're doing great. Thanks for being here. And I will say Merry Christmas too.
And Liz, do we have a winner from our drawing?
We have 2. In the Christmas spirit, I'm gonna give out 2 Amazon gift cards. We have Sarah Shelton and Deepa Dumi, D-U-M-M-I. So you're the big winners. I'll get those to you.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks.